here. I think we just had another person come in. You are all welcome to certainly ask questions along the way. Of course, you're also welcome to wait at the end. You're welcome to unmute and ask the question there. You could raise your hand. We're very flexible. It's a small group and that's totally okay. So just wanted to make sure you all knew that we're flexible. We want to hear from you and what else you might want to touch on. So again, just to recap, again, I'm Laura Crandall, Director of Student Involvement and Leadership. This is our 4th session, our family engagement session. This one is Sustainability at ESF, as well as Tips for Your Home by Sue Fassler. And we will have one final session next week on housing at Centennial Hall. We'll talk a little bit about also kind of what the spring semester is looking like. So Sue, I'll let you take it away and I'll mute so you don't hear my background noise.
All right, thank you, Laura. So everyone, can you see my screen okay, Laura? Just so you can nod your head. Okay, great, thank you. So as Laura mentioned, my name is Sue, and today we will be talking about sustainability at ESF. We're gonna highlight and focus on one key project that I find, of course, the most exciting because it most aligns with my passions, but there's a lot more sustainability-wise going on at ESF beyond what we will talk about today. So if anyone has any questions about our energy programs, future planning, just really anything pertaining to ESF and sustainability, my contact info, if I didn't share it on the last slide, I can put it in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me and I can connect you with multiple people on campus. And we will also talk about tips for your home and how you can help live a more low and zero waste lifestyle. So I like to always kind of start with a slide about me so you can get to know me a little bit. Maybe my cats will make an appearance today, but I have 2 cats, Shimmy and Sudsy. I love to hike like most ESFers. This is myself at the summit of El Yunque in Puerto Rico. And this is a picture of some beautiful people that I worked with in the city of Hallandale Beach, Florida, before I made my return back to home in Central New York and working at ESF. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to primarily focus on talking about materials reduction, which is also kind of known as waste reduction. But so at ESF, we're trying to kind of reframe the narrative of waste because waste has no inherent value. And instead, think about everything that we use and produce as a material, because material has value. So we don't want to just dispose of it and waste that material. So why does waste matter? Why do we care about this? First off, greenhouse gas emissions. Oftentimes in public discourse and a lot of political debates, we'll hear a lot about climate change through the lens of green building, electric cars, things like that, which are a little bit more abstract to the average person in their life. But in actuality, the items that we consume and the materials that we use actually do have a humongous climate change impact. So methane is one of the most impactful greenhouse gases, and landfills are the 3rd largest source of human-related emissions in the US. So the things that we use really do have a very negative impact on climate change. So in fact, the University of Washington last year released a study, and they showed that if you compost 1 wet ton of material, you are reducing methane emissions by 95% than if you were to landfill it. So you can see a very large positive climate impact by tweaking how we manage our materials. Waste also matters within the context of environmental justice, which is something that ESF is focusing more and more on. So oftentimes it's the middle and higher income brackets that are producing and using most of the materials and creating the most waste. But you rarely ever even see a proposed landfill or incinerator even being proposed in a middle or upper income location. They're always disproportionately in maybe rural, underserved, lower income, or places that have a high proportion of people of color. And those communities oftentimes have the least capacity and the least voice in the leadership to fight those things. So by creating a lot of the waste in our higher income communities and then sending it not only to lower income communities in our country, but also throughout the world, our lifestyle is directly impacting someone else who doesn't have the ability to potentially say, not in my backyard, like other people have the privilege of doing. Waste is also a barometer of our culture and our expectations. So in the 1970s, we really saw a huge uptick in the culture of convenience and single-use plastics. Like we want everything on the go. We want to be able to get our coffee while we're going from meeting to meeting. We want to be able to get our fast food if we're running late at work, we don't feel like cooking. And this really became kind of a thing in the 1970s. And as a result, we're seeing our materials shift to more lightweight plastics, which are a lot harder to manage and persist in the environment for hundreds of years. And we also produce a ton of waste. So the next slide shows this dramatic increase in waste production from the 1960s. And you can see we haven't really done a whole lot in terms of source reduction, which is reducing what we use from the very beginning. We have seen increases in recycling and compost and incineration, but it's kind of really bad news to see this amount of waste leveling off, because that means even though we're using a lot more materials, it's lighter weight and it's that harder stuff to manage, like I mentioned before. So this is the last kind of nitty-gritty slide before we get to the ESF case study. So this really wants to hit the point home that this is a systems-based greenhouse gas inventory, and it's showing that 42% of the greenhouse gas emissions in 2009 were related to our consumptive economy. So this is goods and food that is produced. So again, we hear a lot about buildings, heating and cooling and vehicles, but if you really break it down, about 42% of emissions in 2009 were due to the things that we consume every day. And I find that personally, it's sad, but it's also empowering, because that's something that you have the direct capacity to control in your life, much more so than something like a building or even a vehicle, which is a much more heavy investment economically. So we won't get into what this entire hierarchy is, but most people traditionally think of the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. So the Sustainable Materials Management Framework, you can see these reduce, reuse, recycles kind of in the middle ground here. It's not the most desirable. Instead, what is the most desirable is to refuse the things you don't need, rethink the things you do, and redesign on the manufacturing level the things that we do have to use. So it's really front-end loading the importance of source reduction or not using something from the start. We oftentimes hear, it's okay to use this, I can recycle it. Or it's fine to use this, it's compostable. And while sure, it's better to recycle or compost something than to incinerate or landfill it, it's still not your best option, because materials, especially now, if you've seen a lot of the news articles, it's showing that recycling isn't as effective as we all had thought it was potentially, especially since other countries globally have stopped taking in a lot of the recyclable goods that we were sending them, because in actuality, they weren't recycled. So even sometimes when people think they're recycling something, it's ending up in a landfill in a developing country. So I don't mean to be doom and gloom and scare you. I can really get into the nuance of that and question and answer. Recycling does matter, but what matters most is to not use something in the first place if you can help it. So we'll shift to ESF. So our diversion goal, and I'll explain what diversion is in a little bit in more detail, but by 2025, we want to be diverting 90% of the material that we produce on campus from the landfill or the incineration. So this means that using 2020 as our baseline, say we're producing 100 tons of waste a year. We want to only be producing 10 tons of waste a year within the next 5 years. So we want to reduce what we're producing by 90%. So where are we now? So last year's state report gave us a snapshot, which we are using for our baseline. So in that snapshot, we were sending 66% of the material on campus to the landfill or the incinerator. We were only recycling 23%, and we were only composting 11%. So that means our diversion was 34%, which is a far cry from the 90% we want to be by 2025. So how good or bad was ESF doing compared to the rest of the country? That was one of the key questions that we wanted to answer with this baseline. So we're at a 34% diversion. Nationwide is only 35%. So that means ESF, the environmental college, where every single program is focused on sustainability in the environment, we were 1 percentage point lower than the national average in terms of our materials and waste diversion. So that led us to the next question: why was it so incredibly low? So we did a bin audit. We worked with the Student Affairs Office and some of our student sustainability leaders. It was last summer, over a period of about 6 weeks, 6 different Fridays. we went through every single space on campus. So we've got 9 buildings. We went through every office, every lab, every single corridor, and we identified each type of bin in each building. We wanted to see how confusing was it to recycle or to throw something away. And we quickly found out why it was so confusing. So I want to highlight one building in particular, Illick. This is one of our biggest, is probably the biggest building on campus. It had 28 different types of trash and recycling bins in that building in the hallway. None of them were labeled. Everything was kind of mismatched. Bins tended to walk away. And this is something that isn't just at ESF. It is nationwide. Oftentimes when buildings are being constructed and thought through, the operations aren't necessarily thought through. And when you have buildings that are from 30, 40, 50 years ago, you're going to have kind of a mismatch if someone isn't paying direct attention, which is what my job was hired to do. This is a big part of my job description, and it's why I love it so much. So, but it even tells a story. So our Gateway Center is our newest building. It still had 18 different types of trash and recycling bins, most of which were not labeled. So you can definitely see why it was confusing here on campus to recycle properly. And there also wasn't a system unification of compost. So it's kind of a student-run effort, which is very, very laudable. It's great. So the students, the common theme is the students push us to be better. The students wanted composting, so they took it upon themselves to get 5-gallon buckets and collect it around campus and try to manage it on campus. And that's great, but you can't manage an entire compost system that way on a college level. So we took our cue from the students and we decided we want to institutionalize this and really, really help it grow. So what did we do? We used data, a lot of the data from waste audits that were conducted in our classes at ESF. Many students helped to work on this project even before I was hired about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago in March. So a lot of the framework was already created before my position came on board. So I want to give due credit to everyone that was involved before. So we prepared all these economic justifications, and to their credit, the leadership of the college thought this was a very important initiative, and they helped approve a budget measure where we removed and replaced all existing corridor bins. So we replaced that mismatch of trash and recycling, and we unified it with consistent trash, recycling, compost on every floor of every building. So the first floor of every building on campus has this very nice suite of bins, and the upper floors of the buildings have these equally functional, but maybe not as beautiful bins. But the point was we wanted to make it very easy for people to access trash, recycling, and compost. Because if someone had to maybe walk up or down some stairs or take an elevator to compost something, odds are they might not have had the time or been willing to do so. So when you drive behavior change, you want to make it as easy as possible for people. And so all of these bins have consistent signage. And as I mentioned, they're on every floor of every building. And my personal favorite was the mini bin program. So we swapped out the traditional 10-gallon office trash bins with these little, they're really about that big, 1.15 gallon mini bins. They don't have any plastic liner. So that right off the bat saved tens of thousands of plastic bags a year. But it also means that people who have food scraps have to pick up their trash. They don't have to pick up their trash. If people have food scraps, they have to compost it in the hall. Because if they throw it in this little bin that doesn't have a liner, we told people up front that the custodial staff is not going to be washing the mini bins. So unless you want a really gross mini bin, you have to compost. So that also further helped to drive behavior change. So all this is great, but what results have we seen? So I should have mentioned, we rolled this program out last August. So for the last fall semester, so we're about 1 full year into the program. Of course, COVID threw a little bit of hitch into some of the results, but the consistent pre-COVID data shows that we are now sending 52% to the landfill or incinerator. Our recycling rate has jumped to 39%, and we're composting 9%. So that means our diversion rate jumped from 34% to 48% in this 1 year period, simply since we made it more accessible throughout campus and more easy to understand the proper way to dispose of materials or recycle or compost materials on campus. So in terms of the numbers, we've seen recycling increase by 46%. We've seen our trash decrease by 34%, and that's a 14% increase in our diversion rate. And it's really been amazing to see even the source reduction, because so we used to have our trash picked up 5 days a week by an external hauler. Since this program, we've been able to decrease that hauling to 3 days a week. So we're at normally our summer levels of waste production throughout the academic year. So that's an amazing thing, just by switching these bins, doing really deep, broad education and engagement, including lots of students, lots of professors. Our staff, our operations staff deserves huge shout outs, but we've really seen amazing results in a very short amount of time. So, and we also want to show that it is possible to still live some type of normalcy in life. Like, you don't have to choose between like completely fundamentally altering your life and making these sustainable changes. So we were lucky enough to host a Northeast region Beyond Waste Student Summit. So we brought 100 students throughout the region, ESF. We talked about materials management like this for an entire day. The Post Landfill Action Network put on this awesome day. We fed everyone there 2 meals. This was all the waste that was produced throughout the entire day of serving 2 meals. So it was really, really amazing to see that this actually worked with a group of people that care so deeply. And I always like to say, if we can't get it right at ESF, I don't know where we can, because ESF is the perfect microcosm of people that care deeply. We're a small enough scale where we can really see change happen very, very quickly. And I think that's evidenced in this program. So now we'll kind of shift it to your own lifestyle. So what are the things that you can do at home? What are the things that I've done? So I think it's really important to say off the bat that it's good to be kind to yourself. It's good to at least acknowledge you want to take a step to change your lifestyle. This is, for me, the things I talk about, the things I'll show you. This is a culmination of years of me kind of picking and choosing the things that I have the mental space and the time to change in my life. So this wasn't just snap one day, Sue Fassler became almost zero waste. Like, this is something I've been working at for years. And it's been really fun. It's kind of addicting once you start. So the average American generates 4.48 pounds of trash every single day. And that's about 1,600 pounds per person per year. So how can you help? How can you reduce that amount? So the first thing that I started with is I created a room by room inventory. So I went through my house, I created an entire list of everything that is single use, disposable, and especially plastic. And I can tell you right now, your key rooms are going to be your kitchen and your bathrooms. That's where you spend a lot of your time. That's where you're using a lot of things constantly. So I'll encourage you, and I'll do a little show and tell after this. So check out your kitchen. It's more than just reusable bags. Actually, I can do it simultaneously. It's more than just bringing your traditional reusable bag to the grocery store. You can also get produce bags. So you can buy these mesh, and they have non-mesh varieties of produce bags. And this is what I use whenever I get any loose things like green beans or cherry tomatoes. So instead of using that thin film plastic at the grocery store, I put it in one of these. And then food packaging. You can cut out, so if you're lucky enough to live near, and again, this necessitates some privilege. It necessitates having the time to spend driving and doing some of these things. So, but I encourage you to look and see if you have like a local food co-op, or if you live close to a Wegmans, they do have a lot of bulk purchasing options. And I can talk through some of the tricks for Wegmans, because it's not quite as easy as one would want it to be buying in bulk, zero waste at Wegmans. So if people have interest in that, let me know at the end and I can shift into that. So we have a really great co-op located close to ESF. It is the Syracuse Real Food Co-op. So I bring in my glass jars that I end up reusing. Like, this is an old pasta jar, and when it's empty, they weigh it right at the station and they write what's called the tare on it. So this empty weighs 0.72 pounds. So then I fill it up with my cashews. I bring it over to the checkout station. They reweigh it, and they only charge me for what I am actually purchasing. So I love popcorn. I go through a lot of it. It's way cheaper to buy popcorn in bulk, and I can also do it zero waste. They have lots of dry goods. They have oatmeal. A lot of places now are adding things like olive oil or dish detergent. So just really, if you have a place like this, spend some time poking around and seeing what they have in there. And if they don't have something, ask, because I'm sure that they'll find it to be an exciting challenge. And they even have spices. So I can't remember the last time I bought an overpriced plastic spice container. So I can just refill it in bulk the same way that I do anything else. They have bulk tea. So you can really transform a lot of your kitchen if you do have access to a co-op such as that. And if you don't, that's a great thing that you could start to try to organize as a community. I would love to talk to people about that as well. So food storage. Oh, I don't want to skip this one. So this is something you can't have any shame on. This is a plate that I got from a thrift store. And whenever I go to a friend's house where I'm not sure if they're going to use reusable dishware, I always pack my plate with me. And at first it was really nerve-wracking. I didn't want to be the one that stuck out like a sore thumb and invite a bunch of maybe embarrassing attention. But now it's just kind of my thing and people come to expect it. So whether it's at a friend's house or even at like, say someone's having a retirement party at work, now we have compostables on campus. But say in my previous jobs, if I was going to a retirement party or birthday party when there was disposable stuff around, I would bring in my plate. And my former boss actually kind of took a liking to her, maybe took pity on me. But he bought a ton of thrifted plates because my deal was if people bring in their own plate and use it, I will do the dishes. I will remove the impediment of someone not wanting to go reusable at work. And so it worked out awesome. So that's just something that I bring into my life, and then I kind of use it as an educational tool because it's definitely a conversation starter. So I started off as really shy about this stuff, but it's definitely helped me kind of become more confident too in a way because you can't hide behind a plate. Okay, so tea and coffee, talked about that. Spices, meal prep and planning. So another thing that I've realized since I started composting at home is I was actually producing a lot of food waste from not cooking all the things that I meant to throughout the week. I was kind of willy-nilly with my shopping. I didn't have it structured. So I found it was really, really helpful to create and stick to my food menu. And if I found that I wasn't making everything, I wouldn't try to make it again. Like I don't want to force myself to eat something and then end up wasting the food. So in the bathroom, I use a bamboo toothbrush. I buy bulk soap. So in Syracuse, we have a soap maker, Syracuse Soap Works. They make it there and they have what's called like the end rind, the rejects of the soap. So they sell those for way cheaper than their nice artisanal soaps. So I just have my giant container and this soap's gonna last me for a long time and it costed like $7. So it's a really cost-effective way to even think about soap. They have zero waste shampoo and conditioner now. I actually, I make my own deodorant and I can share the recipe. It works very well. It's not an antiperspirant, but we're supposed to sweat. It's okay. So this for me, I did this for health reasons and zero waste reasons. I also make my own face lotion. And an important component of the ingredients that I selected to do this stuff with is that they have multiple purposes. So in the deodorant, I use arrowroot powder, which is very similar to cornstarch. And so if my hair one day is a little bit greasy, instead of using dry shampoo, which comes in plastic, I realized this is the same consistency as arrowroot powder. So I tested it out and it works exactly the same. So it's finding multiple uses for the things that you can buy in bulk and zero waste and kind of getting creative and trying new things. And then I did just also find a zero waste compostable floss. So when this floss is gone, I can just order another floss and keep reusing these things. And there luckily are more and more consumer items that are starting to go more this like zero and low waste packaging option. I have a bamboo toilet brush, so I'm even trying to get away from plastic bristles and things like that. I've clearly taken it to the extreme. And then I also want to mention menstrual cups. So a lot of people don't necessarily equate tampons and pads that are single use with plastic pollution, and they are. People who menstruate go through many tens of thousands throughout their lifetime. And I want to take a note that reusable products aren't for everyone. This isn't meant to like shame or discourage people who don't want to try to make these low waste shifts in their life. We just want to let people know that these options are available and they're becoming more readily available. So there are things like reusable panty liners, there's period underwear, and there are menstrual cups. So at ESF, we were just lucky enough to get a grant from NYSAR 3. It's a college council grant, and we got enough funding to purchase about 230 menstrual cups. So starting this week, we're going to be distributing them on campus to people who have interest, faculty, staff, and students. And so this is a way to kind of pair sustainability with accessibility and environmental justice, because we're helping to destigmatize things that people maybe aren't comfortable talking about on campus. We are creating equity and affordability, because a cup can be $30. We're giving it to people for free. That shouldn't be a financial barrier, shouldn't impact someone's health or access to products. And people shouldn't feel that they have to produce more waste because maybe they can't afford something of a reusable quality. And also, of course, we are reducing waste on campus. So I encourage you to just take it slow, rethink a product or a process every single week. That's kind of the time frame that worked for me, and audit things. And more importantly, though, rethink what you actually need. So instead of maybe, I don't know, buying multiples of something that you might not even need in the first place, really think like, will I use this item? Like myself personally, I love trinkets. Like even on my desk, I have this crab. It's a trinket. Don't know why I bought it 3 years ago, but I'm challenging myself to learn my tendencies and to try not to get the things that I don't need. That doesn't mean that I completely like make my life devoid of joy and fun things, but it definitely is my first level of thought is, do I need this? And we can share these. These are just an example to show you that there are so many different recipes and ways that you can go low waste. So this is my deodorant recipe. You can make dryer bags at home instead of using the single use, potentially toxic dryer sheets. You can clean with vinegar. You can make your own veggie broth, your own face scrub, face lotion. You can make your own zero and low waste cashew or oat milk. It's much more environmentally friendly than almond milk, and it comes in no packaging. And we also have a write-up on how to use your own jars to buy in bulk. So I know I just threw a lot at you. That's the end of my presentation. I'll stop sharing my screen, and I would love to talk more in depth and to answer any questions that people may have. So hopefully that wasn't too much all at once.
Thank you so much, Sue. I know that we've been working for a while, both as a coach. I know you also were a soccer player at ESF and have just so much passion, and you can see that in your work. So it's really always awesome to see that. And that does bleed into our culture at ESF. So thank you for that. I do know that there were recipes on that PowerPoint slide, like the last couple. So I think if that's okay, if we can share those out with our community, I think that would be appreciated. I don't think that you're one to not share recipes, correct?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we can definitely share that. And if people wonder like, hey, is there a recipe for X, Y, or Z low waste, let me know and I would love to research it. I eventually want to get everything kind of compiled on the ESF website. So you'll be helping me if you ask questions and send me on goose chases.
Awesome, cool. And that is exactly what a question was. Can you talk a little bit about tips and tricks for Wegmans? That came up in a comment.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I love Wegmans. They have a lot of bulk options, but I went to 3 or 4 local Wegmans in the Syracuse area, and no one really had the setup to buy in bulk like I just described at like a co-op. So at Wegmans, you know, you have to weigh it and print out that tag and right there at the weigh station. So that doesn't really work with this because that would necessitate that I'm paying for my actual container. So what I did is I bought, as I mentioned, these reusable bags. I have ones that aren't mesh. So what I first do is I fill up something, say it's popcorn. I will fill up my jar with popcorn. I will then pour my popcorn into my reusable mesh or non-mesh bag. I weigh that because this bag weighs a lot less than this glass. So I weigh that. I print out the label. Then I pour it back into my popcorn and then put the label right, actually not even on here. I just put it on my cart or on another bag. So it's kind of the way to trick the system. So you're not having to pay for this, for your container. So, and I haven't had any troubles yet. I've tried talking to managers to say like, hey, it's 2020. Let's have the ability to weigh things at the cashier station. And I haven't given up on that fight yet. We'll get there eventually, but what matters now at least is that Wegmans does have a lot of bulk options, so that's better than nothing. I don't want to disparage them at all. They've done most of the work.
Well, and I know that in New York State, I'm not sure where some families are, but New York State has a plastic bag ban. So I don't know if you have advice on other states who might not have that or anything further about you know, advocating for more than just plastic grocery bags, but the plastic bags like for bulk, for putting in your meat, etc. Do you have any tips or tricks or advice there?
So I think I'd have to brush back up on our state legislation, but I do believe that's still an exemption. So even once the plastic bag ban does go into effect, I think people will still be able to use those produce bags. I mean, I think it's just kind of training yourself to pack those little produce bags the same way that you'll use other bags. Oh, I do have another tip though. So say I want to get some pizza dough or something that's behind the counter. This won't work everywhere. Some places it's a health code violation, but I oftentimes will bring my own Tupperware and say, hey, is it okay if you either like give me the dough in my hand, or can I pass back my container? And sometimes I'll line it in like a reusable something. So that way it's not even creating the waste there. Like they can just kind of plop in whatever I'm trying to buy into my own container. And I also do that at restaurants. So it's something I'm still not very good at. I still myself, I think I use too many takeout containers, but I'm trying to get a lot better. Every time I go out to eat, I bring my own reusable container. And I would say like 85% of the time when I do, the waiter or waitress is really, really intrigued and really impressed. And that again is a conversation starter. So that's what I like about materials management so much, like in terms of sustainability, because it's really tangible. It's very visual. Like I can't see the carbon emissions I'm creating when I turn on my light, but I can definitely see what I'm throwing into my trash when I wheel it out to the end of my driveway, now once every 3 weeks. So it's really cool to see your progress actually taking shape and taking form because it's so tangible.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Sue. Right now I do see again, yeah, I don't see any other questions, but I think that, you know, one thing that, because some of the guests on our Zoom here are families of students, and I don't know exactly what level, but I know that you have a lot of programming. So can you touch on the student programming that happen, and also kind of what upcoming events you have? I know you have sustainability champions coming up. Can you just touch on some of the other stuff working going on, and maybe some of the clubs that students can join?
Yeah, thank you so much. I meant to give that update. I forgot. Thank you. So there are two great student clubs on campus. There's Green Campus Initiative, and they focus more on like the ways that students themselves can change their individual lifestyles to lead a more sustainable life. And then there's also the Undergraduate Student Association's Sustainability Team. And they're more focused on like a holistic college-wide change. So I can give two examples of projects. So Green Campus Initiative, the first group, they run what's called Compost Cab. So this is for any off-campus student. They sign up for 1 weekly slot a semester. So if you have 15 students participating, which is their standard number, each student every week will put out a bucket provided by the club full of compost. Another member will pick it up, bring it to campus to compost it. So each student gets the benefit of someone picking up their compost, but they only have to pick it up once the entire semester. So that was completely student grown, student run. It's really, really impressive. They've been doing it for a few years now. And then Sustainability Team, the second group I talked about, they have organized a campus-wide eco challenge. So this is through Project Drawdown, and it's the top 100 actions that you can take to reduce your impacts on basically the planet. So Sustainability Team is trying to get as many people throughout campus to sign up as possible so we can see our collective impact as a campus as we are reducing things. Yeah, and in general, they're all really engaged with materials management and low and zero waste projects. So there are other clubs on campus focused on other things, but I definitely think the trend of the national conversation about materials management hits home at ESF, and it's what our students want to be doing right now. Sustainability Champions. So this is a kind of a peer-to-peer education network, because it's not the most efficient or probably useful thing for me to talk to every single person on campus. That's just impossible. And people might not want to hear from me. I'm not in their peer group. So what we do is we make like an open campus-wide call. We say, hey, we're going to be hosting a workshop at this date and this time covering this. We would love you to join. The super dedicated people do join. The people that really have interest come to the session. And then our ask of them is just talk about what you learned. Spread it like a ripple within your various groups. And that's how we kind of help to spread the word about sustainability programs on campus. So the next one is October 14th at 11. And we'll be talking about a lot of the progress, not just in what we talked about today, but also sustainability research on campus, energy, the student garden. We'll be talking about things like that on October 14th.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I love the programs that you come up with and all the work you do. It's like you don't sleep. So, and I know you do because you wouldn't be sustainable if you didn't sleep, right?
Exactly.
So, can you touch on a little bit about, other initiatives that happen at ESF outside of waste and consumption? Maybe some of the solar and lead platinum, lead buildings that we're having, if you know a little bit about them.
Yeah, so Marshall Hall is being completely renovated right now, and that will be leadership in energy and environmental design LEED rated. It'll either be platinum or gold. So basically that's a really stringent third-party certification and verification that the building is being constructed and will be operated, which is the key, in a sustainable fashion. So this includes things like water use, energy use, materials collection, the type of materials we have and systems we have generating power in the building. The Gateway Center is LEED certified as well. And then there's actually student groups on campus working in a class to get Baker Labs LEED O&M, so that's operations and maintenance certified. Because oftentimes a building is created, it's built 5-6 years down the line, things kind of shift from the baseline of what you intended the building to do. So getting LEED O&M certified is kind of like our check on ourselves to make sure we're doing the things that we should be doing. So the students are doing those audits. We also have an ESF campus garden at, I believe it's at Lafayette Road Experiment Station. So that's about 15 minutes south of campus, and there are work study positions available there. So that's, to me, the sweetest job on campus. You basically get paid to learn how to garden and to generate produce that then you can take home and that the rest of the ESF campus can appreciate as well. And then we do have a number of energy projects on campus. It's definitely not my area of expertise, but if people are interested in it, I could connect you with Josh Arnold. He's the director of energy, and you think I have data? He's got way more data, and he would love to share it. So yeah, I know we've seen a tremendous, I wouldn't even want to hazard a guess at the % reduction because I don't want to get it wrong, but we've seen a tremendous reduction in energy use since Josh came on board and the rest of his team, the operations team working with him in the last 3-4 years.
Absolutely. And with Josh's leadership as well, I believe our Gateway Center, the CHP combined heat and power unit powers several buildings on campus. And I don't know this enough either, right? Correct?
Yeah, so it is, it's a dual system. It has biomass and natural gas fired. So it's still using fossil fuels, but it works in concert with the biomass system to meet peak load and demand. And again, out of my range of expertise here, but it does provide the electricity for a number of processes and buildings on campus. And they're working ever more to take us off the higher carbon intensive things. Like we get a lot of steam from Syracuse University. We're trying to kind of winnow that down and become more self-sufficient and also reduce the carbon intensity of energy generation on campus.
Very cool. So a question that came up is, could you talk a little bit about conserving energy for our own homes?
So again, that's not my greatest area of expertise, so I don't want to mislead you or say the wrong thing. I would say I'm going to go back to doing audits. Find out, I know that you can get, I'm not sure if it's called a plug load meter or something, but you can get a tool to plug it into various appliances to figure out how much energy that device uses. If there's a ghost load, so if something's plugged in like your TV, but you're not using it, it's still drawing power. It's either a ghost or a vampire load kind of interchangeably. So you can get things on different power strips to actually shut things off when they're off. Turn things off when you're not using them. And I think the best way to probably get some solid data would be to get one of those plug load meters to really see what you're using and then try to kind of narrow it down from there.
Absolutely. I know that Sue knows this, but recently a couple of alumni friends have gotten into solar panels on their roofs or in their property. And so we explored that, and we have now had solar panels put on our roof. And they're not fully installed yet. We have to wait for our national grid to run them, but it is another way to get us off the grid. So it's there's companies out there all over. It's just, you know, doing your research and homework and learning about, you know, we also put in a pool for our children and us, and obviously that is you know, a statement that does involve further exploration. We're buying solar panels to help offset the load from our pool. However, we have made that choice, and so that is another thing to consider. I know that at Centennial Hall, I don't know if you're connected with EcoReps and some of the initiatives that they do down there as well, with kind of limits on heat and, you know, initiatives to show like shower a few minutes less. And I don't know enough about what Centennial Hall does, but I know that there is some programming with EcoReps. Do you have more on that, Sue?
So I know at a baseline level, and I should say a lot of, you can really see where ESF is what ESF is doing in multiple areas of sustainability. If you check out our STARS sustainability report, and I can share that link, that is one of our more up-to-date ways of showcasing what we're doing in a variety of areas. So we get different points based upon the number of actions that we're doing in different areas. So the Sustainability Champions program that I mentioned does get us engagement points on STARS. Similarly, EcoReps, which Laura just mentioned, so that's the peer-to-peer education network that students in the Centennial, in the dorms participate in. So you have, I think it's 10 or 15, maybe more by this point, like point people that then help spread information throughout campus in the dorm. So I am actually talking to Kim Max right now to try to see how we can maybe better mesh our compost messaging with EcoReps. So I think they're a great, potentially I haven't used that resource enough because students are the best way to reach other students. I don't necessarily know the best way to talk to every single student on campus. They're gonna learn from their friends, the people they go to class with, whether it's virtual or in person. And that's the most efficient way for us to learn what our students want us to do too, and where they want to take us now. Like maybe this cohort of students really cares about materials. Maybe the next group of students has another great idea that they want us to really take on. So definitely encourage your students to tell us what they want to see. And there is, I'm not sure if it's on the website yet. So we're in the process of redoing the entire college website. So if it's not there now, it will be soon. We have a sustainability project submittal form. So people can give us some more information about things they would like to see on campus. And then we can connect them with student groups doing similar work, or something that we will take as a staff and work with different students on as well.
Great, thank you so much. A question that came up is, what is the work study for the gardening? So can you just touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so the contact person there is Justin Heavey, and I should be writing down all of my follow-up action items. So I'm going to write myself a note. I will share his email address with Laura, and then we can get that to you. So we need work study.
I got it, Sue. I looked it up right now.
Okay, perfect. Well, there we go. Laura's one step ahead. I'm a list maker, so any excuse to make a list, I'm on it.
Great. Are there other questions that we can answer, or that Sue can answer, I should say, or get back to us on? And you're also very welcome to unmute and ask it as well. While we're having people think about it, I know, Sue, when you did the waste audit and made significant change there, you had to have saved the college some money from buying plastic bags and having less haulers haul the trash out each day. So do you have any data to support being more sustainably, not just in if anyone owns their business or could influence a business or organization that they run, but also just in your daily life, again, not purchasing plastic, but do you have a number of maybe what you helped save in that year?
So I could go back and do that relatively easily. I'm not sure if we're seeing savings at this point, because I mean, we're seeing savings from reducing the trash that we're taking from campus 5 days a week, but we reinvested those savings into increasing our compost numbers. So I can definitely get that saving. I can do the plastic bags. That's easy. I'll have to get back to you on that. The bad thing is that compostable bag liners cost a lot more than traditional plastic bags. So while maybe we're seeing a huge numerical reduction in plastic bags, some of that cost is being borne in the cost of compost. But where we did see savings is, I should mention, when we swapped to those 1.15 gallon mini bins. So custodial staff before this switch used to pick up trash and recycling in offices 4 or 5 days a week. So when we implemented the new mini bins, we said we're going to standardize. That's the common theme of this program, is standardize. So custodial staff in every building will be picking up trash and recycling from offices on Wednesdays. And if someone needs more service than that, we invite them to pick up the very mobile, very easy to use mini bin and bring it to a hallway station to empty. So because custodial staff didn't have to go into offices, every single office on campus, every single day to be doing things, we calculated on average, it saved about 6.5 or 7 hours per week per custodial staff member. So that's basically the equivalent of hiring another full-time employee. We're getting that much work back from reducing redundancy. So I would say that more of our cost savings have been seen on the operational side of things than on the physical purchasing of things. But I do think as more people adopt things like this, we will see the price of bags and other materials go down drastically. So we'll become a lot more cost competitive.
That's awesome. Really good stuff, Sue. I want to again pause for a few more questions if anyone has any. I know that I missed a comment, but it was about SodaStream has a point of use seltzer station rather than single use.
I think we'll start seeing more and more like companies like Loop. I'm not sure if people are familiar with Loop, but they're partnering with others. Like, I also really like ice cream. So Haagen-Dazs, I know, participates in the program. So instead of buying like your kind of cardboard coated in wax, which oftentimes isn't recyclable, single-use Haagen-Dazs, you can, it's not available everywhere in the country, but there are the select pilot markets where you can order a Haagen-Dazs in like a metal canister from Loop. It gets shipped to you, you eat it, you send it back. So that's like an extreme form of extended producer responsibility. So that is the producer directly taking back something and reusing it. So that's a phenomenal model. And I think we will hopefully start to see more of that in the future, because really we're not going to start seeing radical shifts in consumption until we redesign how our materials and products come to us and how we access it.
And you reminded me of some of our students also have participated in, are working at the co-op Sue was mentioning right on campus on Kensington, which is not too far, maybe 10-15 minute walk from campus, or bike ride, which we have a huge bike culture at ESF. It's great. And we also have bikes that students can loan. So even reducing transportation and carbon footprint through that is a huge thing at ESF. But also, a lot of our students have participated in community supported agriculture. We also have students who I've heard of, and I don't know how many, but hunt or eat only farm raised or free range animals. So I don't know enough about that, but I know that we have a lot of student interest in that as well. A question is, we have a local refill shop where you can bring your containers and shop for household cleaners, food items. Is there a similar place in Syracuse?
Yep, so that co-op that Laura was just mentioning, it's called the Syracuse Real Foods Co-op. And then Wegmans has a lot. I think it's called Green Planet Grocery, has some locations in the suburbs near Syracuse. And then there's a new Salt City market space opening up at some point in the new year. And I believe the co-op is expanding their operations in that space as well. So I think they're going to have a lot more offerings of fresh food, and I'm hoping bulk items as well.
Another question is single-use water available in aluminum cans rather than plastic bottles?
I assume that would exist. But again, as I said in the beginning of the presentation, my goal is really, so the things that I can control, and that is single-use water bottle. So you'll never see me go anywhere without my water bottle, which I have decorated with some fun stickers, so I won't lose it, because I do kind of lose everything. So I don't want to shame the person that asked that question at all. I know sometimes you're on the go, you need a single-use option. I would say aluminum is probably a better recyclable option than a plastic water bottle. But wherever possible, we want to keep source reduction in mind. So what can I rethink and change my habits so that I don't need anymore? Like, do I really need that single-use water bottle, period, even if it's in plastic or aluminum?
Absolutely. Let's see. Is there anything else you want to mention, like commenting on the food piece I mentioned about CSAs or anything else on food in particular? I know that you have a lot of food purchasing power expertise, but any local favorites that you support that are really sustainably done businesses in the area?
That's something I need to learn more about. So I'm really kind of in the phase where I'm trying to gear up my own skills so I can really be as local as possible by myself, trying to grow as much as I can, preserve as much as I can, and then hunt and fish as much as I can. So it's not really me doing the hunting. I have to say I can rely on my husband to do that. So really the only meat that I do eat is we've kind of dubbed it a sustainitarian. So I'll eat meat if it's truly local, truly sustainable, but mostly if it's hunted. Like I haven't purchased meat from a grocery store in about 3 years, but I do have the luxury of living in a rural area where we are able to hunt like that. But I do know that a lot of my friends do purchase like higher quantities of like pork or beef. They'll go in with some friends and say like, maybe we'll buy like XYZ part of a pig or half a pig and we'll split it up this way. So it's helping local farms, but it's also more sustainable. So that's a good idea though to add to the ESF website, is to really get a comprehensive list of regional places that are doing it right, and that would be good to help support. So I will definitely add that to my list.
Thank you so much, Sue. This might be our final question, but we'll give it another time. How are the water refill stations sanitized? Or can you touch on the water refill stations in general, then sanitation of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a number of refill stations on campus, and if anyone has questions about COVID disinfecting, I encourage you to check out our COVID homepage. Our FAQ documents really go into deep detail in our custodial procedures. And I have to say, so part of my job, custodial does report through me. So that's a really kind of cool way that sustainability can pervade custodial, but it also enables me to answer your question in a very deep way because I helped to write the disinfecting guidelines for campus. So there are a multitude of places on campus that are disinfected twice per day, and drinking fountains and water refilling stations are disinfected twice a day. But we also, if you're on campus, you will see that there is disinfectant everywhere. So if someone did want to disinfect a surface, they could easily find that. We do also have 2-ounce spray bottle hand sanitizers that every person on campus was provided with. We have wall-mounted hand sanitizers. So there are a variety of ways in which people can empower themselves to disinfect something, but our custodial staff is routinely disinfecting those twice a day as well.
Great, thank you. I was just checking our Facebook page, and we did have a question about the bikes. So again, we do have a huge bike culture. Students are biking in a lot of places to explore the area, grocery shop, to avoid having a car, and it's really a nice thing to see. We have so many bike racks and places to, reroute. Obviously with Marshall construction, there's a little bit more of chaos, but certainly that's not a permanent thing. But we do have 5 bikes through the library. It's actually from a student senior project or senior capstone several years ago now. I think that, Sue, you might have known them as well. So that was created and implemented right when they were graduating. And so we've kept up 5 bikes. They could be rented for 24 hours through the library. Of course, if the library is closed, then it could be the next business day. And they are very popular. They do come with helmets, of course. So it's important that students obviously are wearing bike helmets, and they come with a U-lock, so they don't have to worry about that. But actually this year we also had a company come in and put several bike stations around. They're not for free, of course, though, but it isn't. They have a lot of deals, and we're actually going to do a little bike launch. But they have about 200 e-bikes around the city, and they are a $58 yearly fee or a $12 monthly rate. It's, I think, called Ride Gotcha.
Yeah, it's Gotcha Bike.
Gotcha Bike. Thank you. I knew I'd mess that one up, but so they're literally across from Centennial Hall. We also have, again, a huge bike culture, and there are some bike companies around. I know that, and I don't know for sure how many students do have Stumpy Swap or places to try and, rent a bike for a year or, buy it from a friend who might not want to bring it home. So if there is ever a problem with the bikes and finding that, certainly we could touch on that with the government. But again, we do have the bike. It's not all year long because of winter and wanting to preserve the bikes from salt, but certainly that is an option as well. Is there a question? I see perhaps someone might want to, I heard a little noise in the background. So if there's someone who wanted to ask a question, do feel free to ask it. All right, well, I think that we will wrap up now just so we could be respectful of time. Again, next week is about housing. So we'll talk about Centennial Hall, what it's looking like now and what the spring semester is shaping up to look like. I know that at times things just continue to change and evolve. So we'll always be in the loop with you all on that. Thank you for being in touch and keeping up with our Facebook comments. I feel like I've taken it over a little bit, not my intention, but it seems like that is a good way to reach you all. So Sue, I wanted to just see if you had any last minute takeaways for our families. If there's one thing you could change, what is that advice?
Oh God, if there's one thing I could change. I don't know, but I want to just thank everyone for attending. You're definitely part of the ESF family. Yeah, I mean, to deviate and not answer your question at all, Laura. So it's funny. I think the reason I definitely went to ESF was because of my parents. My parents, my dad's on the board of a land trust, the CNY, or the Tug Hill Tomorrow Land Trust, and he goes everywhere wearing his Save Land hat. So at first, when I was younger, I kind of found it embarrassing, but now I think it's the coolest thing ever. So your actions definitely impact those of your students. So definitely, I mean, as much as they push us and they're the reason that the college changes, you can help push them to change as well. So even if you don't feel like they appreciate you or understand you now, speaking from experience, they do and they will. So did not answer your question, Laura, but
you absolutely did. I think that's a great set of advice and, an anecdote, being a student who didn't grow up necessarily in that. We certainly, but we didn't do, that's where it stopped. We recycled the big things, but we certainly were using styrofoam and a lot of single-use plastic for parties, the red Solo cups and all of that. And so, just chipping away at it. I'm on my kids' PTO and trying to do what I can to reduce our carbon footprint, recycle, just little things, small changes make a big difference. I think that was one of our Earth Week themes, which we totally forgot to touch on, but we do celebrate Earth Week instead of Earth Day in April every year. So just encouraging your student to take a chance, try something different, learn a little bit about it, join one of the many sustainability teams we have or clubs we have at ESF. Become a sustainability champion with Sue's work. I know that she just sent an email launching again in October. So anything like that, I think will make a big difference. And, participating in all of the resources we have with the different labeled trash, recycling, compost bins already is a big help. When they unrolled, I remember, or were unveiled, a student had said that someone in front of them had thrown a banana peel in the trash, and they're like, literally the third over is compost. How did you not do it? And so I think it's, again, reinforcing and changing our habit. And, like I said, I don't mean to steal the theme from Earth Week, but small changes do make a big difference. So thank you again for tuning in, and I love the energy here. So we will post the PowerPoint slide on the family website, and this video will be closed caption and posted tomorrow as well. So thank you and have a great night, and hopefully we'll see you for the final session next week. Thank you everyone for all your passion and energy. It's contagious.
Well, thank you for inviting me in. Thank you for all that you do. I mean, talking about not sleeping, that's you. So
thank you.